At 85 years old, David Allan Coe should be a quiet footnote in country music history. But instead, he has returned with something far louder than a farewell tour. He's returned with a secret, one so big and so damning that it could shatter the Grand Ole Opry's legacy forever. After decades of silence, blacklisting, and whisper warnings from Nashville's elite, Coe has decided he's done holding back. In a cryptic interview filmed just weeks ago, he dropped a bombshell that insiders say could bring down names, reopen old investigations, and destroy the polished image the Opry has spent a century building. Why was he really banned? What did he witness in the late 70s? And who tried to pay him off to stay quiet? This isn't just another outlaw story. This is a final act of vengeance from a man who never forgot how they erased him and who finally found the evidence to expose it all. Long before he was the most dangerous outlaw country ever tried to silence, David Allan Coe was just a kid lost in the system. Born in Akron, Ohio, in 1939, Coe's life took a dark turn early on. By the age of 9, he was already in reform school. By his teenage years, he was locked in and out of juvenile homes, and soon after, full-fledged prisons. The world didn't offer David a soft place to land. It threw him into survival mode. Every time he tried to get up, the system pushed him back down. But inside those concrete walls, something started to form. A voice, a pen, a defiance that would never go away. He began writing songs behind bars, raw, brutal, and unfiltered. This wasn't Nashville polish. This was prison gospel, pain put to a rhythm. He later claimed to have spent time on death row for killing an inmate who tried to assault him. Though many dispute the details, what can't be denied is that when he finally got out, he wasn't just a man with a criminal record. He was a storm walking into Nashville with a chip on his shoulder and a guitar on his back. When Coe arrived in Music City in the late 1960s, he didn't come looking for permission. He parked his hearse outside the Ryman Auditorium, lived out of it, and dared anyone to ignore him. And ignore him they did at first, but then came the songs. He wrote "Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone," a haunting ballad that became a #1 hit for Tanya Tucker. Suddenly, the industry had to pay attention, but they didn't like what they saw. Long-haired, covered in tattoos, unfiltered and unpredictable, Coe didn't fit the mold. He wasn't the polished cowboy or the charming rogue. He was dangerous, too dangerous. And while country outlaws like Waylon and Willie were being celebrated for pushing boundaries, Coe was already pushing past them into territory no one else dared approach. His early albums, raw, independent, full of rage and beauty, caught fire underground. He built a cult following of bikers, ex-cons, misfits, and wanderers. His fans weren't buying records. They were buying truth. And in the eyes of the establishment, that truth was a threat. Nashville had created a system to keep their stars clean and controlled. But David Allan Coe, he never signed that contract. He was a problem from day one, and the Opry, they knew it. While most country stars begged for record deals and polished their boots for a shot at the Grand Ole Opry, David Allan Coe took a different route, one soaked in rebellion, defiance, and total independence. He didn't just carve out a career without Nashville's help. He built an empire right under their noses. After years in prison and on the streets, Coe emerged with sound that didn't beg for radio play. It demanded attention. His early albums, including Penitentiary Blues and Requiem for a Harlequin, didn't sound like anything on the airwaves. They were rough, psychedelic, sometimes disturbing, but they were his. It wasn't long before his songwriting caught fire. He wrote "Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone," a song so intimate and intense that even the mainstream couldn't ignore it. When Tanya Tucker made it a #1 hit, Coe got his first major paycheck. But instead of using that moment to cozy up to the industry, he doubled down on being the outsider. He released a mysterious rhinestone cowboy, wearing a Lone Ranger mask and performing in full rhinestone suits, mocking the industry's obsession with image while stealing their audience one beer joint at a time. Then came Long-Haired Redneck, If That Ain't Country, and the genre bending You Never Even Call Me By My Name. Each song poked fun at the system, questioned its rules, and resonated with fans who didn't care about what the Opry thought was respectable. Coe's music was dirty and beautiful, offensive and honest, outlaw and poetic all at once. While Waylon, Willie, and Chris Christopherson were being celebrated as the new faces of outlaw country, Coe was the one building a kingdom of his own, far away from TV specials and CMA award shows. And he did it all without the Opry, without the radio gatekeepers, and without ever asking for permission. His concerts were rowdy, unpredictable, and sometimes dangerous. He didn't just sing. He provoked. He wasn't a performer. He was a warning shot. David Allan Coe proved he could sell out shows, top charts, and live like a legend without ever kneeling to Nashville. And that terrified them, because if one man could succeed outside the system, how long before others tried? And that's when the real pushback began. For decades, the Grand Ole Opry was considered sacred ground, reserved for country royalty chosen carefully by a mysterious inner circle. Getting invited to play, let alone be inducted, was the ultimate validation for a country artist. But for David Allan Coe, that door was slammed shut from the start. Not once in his 60-year career was Coe asked to perform on the Opry stage. Not as a guest, not as a member. And the reason it was never made official, but the whispers were loud. Some said it was his time in prison. Others pointed to his controversial lyrics, his wild image, or the Confederate flag draped behind him on stage. But insiders, former producers, radio promoters, even a few aging Opry veterans, have started revealing a darker truth. Coe wasn't just excluded because he was rough around the edges. He was blacklisted silently, systematically. One former Opry associate claimed that in the late 1970s, Coe had a meeting with a key figure at the Opry's management office. According to the source, the meeting ended with shouting, broken glass, and a threat. Coe was told he'd never set foot on the Opry stage as long as that man was in charge. Who that man was has never been confirmed. But Coe never forgot. Others say Coe got too close to a scandal the Opry desperately wanted buried, a rumored affair between a rising female star and a married Opry executive. Another story claims Coe stumbled across financial documents suggesting massive under-the-table payouts for chart manipulation in the 70s. Documents that allegedly disappeared after a studio break-in. Whatever the truth may be, the result was clear. Coe's name was scrubbed from programs, ignored by booking agents, and left out of award nominations. While his peers got inducted, celebrated, and honored, Coe was treated like a ghost. No matter how many albums he sold or how many hits he wrote, the Opry never acknowledged him. It wasn't just a snub, it was a silent execution. And now, at 85, David Allan Coe is ready to tell everything, names, dates, and deals gone wrong. He kept the secrets for decades, but not anymore. Because to Coe, the Opry didn't just leave him out. They made him an enemy. And enemies always come back. While most fans assumed David Allan Coe's absence from the Opry was just another chapter in his outlaw legacy, few understood the scale of the war being waged behind the scenes. Coe wasn't just forgotten. He was strategically erased. After his success in the 70s and 80s, something shifted. Radio stations stopped spinning his records. Award shows excluded him completely. Venues that once booked him suddenly backed out without reason. His name stopped appearing in documentaries that featured artists he had written hits for. And the orders, according to industry insiders, came from high places. Music executives labeled him unmanageable. PR firms called him toxic. Even artists he once helped refuse to mention his name publicly. Why? Because Coe didn't follow the script. He refused to apologize for who he was or what he sang. He mocked the industry's politics. He wore what he wanted, sang what he wanted, and spoke truths that made powerful people nervous. The unspoken rule in Nashville became clear. If you work with David Allan Coe, your career might suffer. So, most people didn't. But Coe wasn't just an outlaw in name. He lived it, and he refused to go quietly. He continued releasing albums independently. He toured relentlessly, often performing in packed biker rallies, small-town bars, and outlaw festivals that welcomed him like royalty. His fan base didn't shrink. It grew underground, off the grid, and fiercely loyal. They weren't country radio listeners. They were lifers. They knew every lyric, every insult he hurled at the industry, and every grudge he carried. Despite being blacklisted, Coe's influence remained impossible to erase. Artists secretly studied his phrasing. Young writers admired his raw lyricism, And every time one of his songs hit the internet or made it onto a bootleg playlist, the industry's plan to silence him fell apart a little more. They wanted him invisible. He became legendary. Now at 85, David Allan Coe is speaking directly to the war they thought they'd won. He's naming the names. He's burning the paper trail. And this time, the Opry won't be able to hide behind tradition, because when a man has nothing left to lose, the truth becomes a loaded gun, and Coe just cocked it. For years, David Allan Coe kept his mouth shut. He played the long game, watching the country music industry move on without him, biting his tongue as the Opry celebrated artists he knew had skeletons far darker than his. But now at 85, he's finally cracking open the vault. In a recently leaked recording from a private podcast taping, one that was never supposed to be released, Coe drops bombshells that have left Nashville rattled. In the clip, he begins slow, almost like he's telling an old war story, but then he names names. He talks about a night in 1977 backstage at a major venue, when he says he walked in on an Opry executive in the middle of what he calls a sickening transaction. Coe claims it involved a minor, a suitcase full of cash, and a promise that nothing would come of it. He never went to police, but he told two close friends, one of whom died under mysterious circumstances. Then there's a letter. Coe holds up a yellowed handwritten letter, allegedly from a former Opry board member. In it, the man apologizes to Coe for being part of the machine that blacklisted you. The letter references an incident involving a broken deal and a threat that if Coe didn't stay quiet, they'd bury his career. Coe kept it hidden for over 40 years. Even more disturbing, he plays a voice memo. Scratchy, grainy, but chilling, a now-deceased country star is heard talking about a bathhouse party involving multiple high-level industry figures. The voice warns Coe to stay out of it or risk ending up in the river like the others. Some call these stories wild, exaggerated, the ramblings of an old outlaw desperate for relevance. But others are listening closely because some of these ramblings line up with whispered rumors that have existed in Nashville for decades. The Opry has declined to comment. The executives mentioned have gone silent. And Coe, he's got more. He claims to have tapes, photos, and contracts, things he held on to in case they ever came for him. Now he's not waiting for them to come. He's bringing it all forward piece by piece. Because Coe isn't just mad. He's on a mission, and the Opry, it might not survive what he's about to reveal next. The interview that lit the firestorm wasn't planned. It wasn't scheduled through a PR firm or pitched to major outlets. It happened in a small room on David Allan Coe's Tennessee property. Just him, a camera crew, and a journalist he trusted. What began as a casual conversation quickly unraveled into one of the most explosive rants in country music history. For nearly 2 hours, Coe unloaded decades of rage, betrayal, and buried truth. And when it hit the internet, it spread like wildfire. In the video, Coe doesn't yell. He doesn't cry. He speaks slow, measured, and deadly calm, holding a stack of papers in one hand and a cigarette in the other. He tells stories that sound too dark to be fiction. He names executives who blacklisted him. He accuses specific Opry members of covering up abuse and manipulating careers behind closed doors. He reads from old letters, some allegedly written by artists who begged him to keep their secrets. He plays unreleased voicemails of broken promises and veiled threats. But the most jaw-dropping moment comes near the end when Coe pauses, leans forward, and whispers into mic, "You want to know why I was banned from the Opry? Because I knew too much. Because I wouldn't play along. Because I caught one of their own doing something that would have destroyed them, and now I'm done protecting them." The room goes quiet. No background music, no editing, just truth hanging in the air. The video was never supposed to go public, but it leaked within days. And once it did, there was no stopping it. Fans clipped moments and spread them on TikTok. Country forums exploded. YouTube lit up with reactions. Younger artists, many of whom had only heard whispers of Coe's legacy, began asking questions. Why wasn't he ever invited to the Opry? Why were these stories never covered? The establishment scrambled. The Opry released a vague corporate statement about honoring tradition and not commenting on unverified claims. But it was too late. The silence said more than words ever could. For the first time, The industry couldn't bury David Allan Coe. He had outlived them, outlasted them, and now he had outed them. The backlash was immediate, but not the kind the Opry expected. As David Allan Coe's bombshell interview made its rounds across the internet, the reaction from the country music world was split straight down the middle. On one side, you had silence, the kind that spoke louder than denial. Major country outlets refused to run the story. Country radio ignored the clip entirely, and stars tied the Opry, especially the longtime members, stayed quiet. No tweets, no statements, no support. It was as if they were all holding their breath, waiting to see just how far Coe would go. But on the other side came fire. Younger artists, especially those on the fringes of Nashville's elite, began speaking out, not just in defense of Coe, but in outrage over the system itself. TikTok creators dissected his claims line by line. A viral thread exposed other legends who were snubbed or silenced by the Opry. Fans flooded comment sections with hashtags like #JusticeAforco and #OpryExposed. Some even showed up outside the Opry House in Nashville holding signs that read, "Why not Coe?" and "The truth is outlaw." Then came the old guard. A few of Coe's outlaw-era peers, survivors of the same backroom battles, broke their silence. One longtime country songwriter admitted he too had been threatened after questioning the Opry's internal politics. Another confirmed that Coe's claims about blacklists were not only real, but still happening to this day. Even a retired Opry sound engineer came forward in a live stream admitting there were dozens of artists whose names were never allowed in the building. As the pressure mounted, so did Coe's platform. His streaming numbers soared. The Ride, Long-Haired Redneck, and If That Ain't Country re-entered country charts on Spotify and Apple Music. His social media following doubled. His shows, once relegated to fringe venues, began selling out faster than they had in years. The Opry had tried to erase him. Instead, they revived him. And as the dust settled, one thing became painfully clear. David Allan Coe wasn't just an outlaw anymore. He was a lightning rod in a storm the Opry never saw coming. In the end, David Allan Coe didn't need an Opry induction. He didn't need a statue, a tribute, or a standing ovation from the very stage that denied him for over half a century. Because at 85 years old, Coe had already done something far more powerful. He cracked the halo that sat above the Grand Ole Opry and revealed the mess underneath. What began as a bitter grudge transformed into a reckoning, not just for Coe, but for every artist the Opry overlooked, silenced, or buried in polite erasure. His viral interview didn't just relight his career. It exposed a hypocrisy that's lingered beneath Nashville's surface for decades. Fans began questioning everything. How many other legends were kept out for speaking up? How many careers were quietly dismantled behind the scenes? And if the Opry could blacklist someone as influential and enduring as David Allan Coe, what did that say about the values they claimed to uphold? Coe, for his part, has made peace with it. In his final statements, he said he never needed the Opry's validation. They tried to kill me off without a funeral, he said. Now I'm writing the eulogy for their image. These days, he spends his time at home surrounded by guitars, notebooks, and a lifetime's worth of scars. And every once in a while, he'll post a new song or play an old one that hits even harder now than it did the day he wrote it. As for the Opry, they've gone into full damage control, updating PR statements, quietly removing old staff, and desperately trying to patch the cracks Coe blasted open. But it's too late. The mystique is broken. The illusion shattered. The man they thought would disappear has become the symbol of a deeper truth, that you can silence a voice, but not a legacy. David Allan Coe's story is no longer just one of rebellion. It's one of survival, exposure, and poetic revenge. He didn't just outlive the Opry's blacklist. He rewrote the final chapter. And now, the institution that once ignored him must live in the shadow of the outlaw they could never control. Now, as the dust settles and the industry fumbles to rewrite history, David Allan Coe stands unshaken. At 85, he's not begging for a second chance. He's lighting a match under the lies that held him back. In a world obsessed with polished reputations and curated legends, Coe ripped off the mask and dared country music to look itself in the mirror. He doesn't need the Opry stage. He became something far more powerful. It's reckoning. His legacy, once buried under controversy, now roars louder than ever. And as he strums his guitar from a porch deep in Tennessee, one thing's certain: the whisper of the Opry's rejection will never be louder than the roar of Coe's truth. What do you think will be the final outcome of David Allan Coe's shocking claims? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more updates on this story and others like it.